Morning, speaking operator 348. Yes, hi. I live in Desert Canyon, and my next door neighbor, one of our other neighbors, found her dog on the street yesterday. Her car's in the driveway. She's not answering her door. There's packages on her doorstep. She's not answering her phone. Her back door is wide open. So I don't know what's going on.
What the hell did I do? Kill them all. Of course.
It's the story that's been shocking the world for decades. A real estate heir, a man with everything, but a dark, hidden secret. A man whose life would be marred by a trail of death, betrayal, and mystery. A man who would become the center of one of the most bizarre and chilling criminal investigations ever to unfold in America. The question that haunted everyone for years: was he guilty of murder, or was he the victim of a twisted conspiracy? In 2015, after a decade of silence, Robert Durst, who had been involved in multiple cases of suspicious deaths, was about to be exposed in a way he never saw coming. A documentary was set to air, one that would reveal shocking truths. But what happened next would leave the world stunned. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back, way back, to a time when Robert Durst was just a troubled heir, surrounded by fortune, but at war with himself. What did this man do to deserve his place in history as one of the most infamous figures in criminal history? And what is the real story behind the deaths that seemed to follow him wherever he went? Stay tuned, because this story is darker and more twisted than you could ever imagine. Let's start at the beginning. Robert Durst was born on April 12, 1943, into one of the wealthiest families in New York. His father, Seymour Durst, was a real estate mogul, and his mother, Ann Durst, came from a family of successful professionals. On paper, Robert had everything anyone could want: a prestigious family legacy, access to power, and unimaginable wealth. But his life was far from perfect. From a young age, Robert's life was marked by tragedy. In 1950, when he was just 7 years old, his mother fell to her death from the family's penthouse window. Though it was ruled a suicide, rumors swirled that it was no accident. Some believed that Robert may have witnessed her death, a traumatic event that would haunt him for years. Despite this early tragedy, Robert's life continued to take strange, unpredictable turns. He was a quiet child, reserved and disconnected, struggling with the weight of his family name. As he grew older, he went to school at Lehigh University and later attended the University of California, Berkeley. But Robert wasn't interested in following the expected path into the family business. Instead, he lived a life that seemed to oscillate between wealth and isolation. However, things started to take a dark turn when Robert met Kathleen McCormack, a young woman who was full of life and ambition. They married in 1971, but their relationship quickly became fraught with tension. In 1982, after more than a decade of marriage, Kathleen vanished without a trace. Kathleen's disappearance would haunt Robert Durst for the rest of his life. But what happened to her? Was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Robert Durst insisted that she had disappeared while visiting a friend in New York. Yet, no one believed his version of events. Kathleen's family suspected foul play, but despite extensive investigations, no concrete evidence ever surfaced. Robert's behavior, though, raised suspicions. He seemed unaffected, unbothered by the disappearance of his wife, even as the investigation into her fate deepened. But this was just the beginning of his dark journey. Fast forward to 2000. Robert's life seemed to be in freefall. He was living a reclusive existence, moving from place to place, staying under the radar. In Los Angeles, he was close friends with a woman named Susan Berman, a journalist and writer who knew all about the dark secrets Robert was trying to hide. Susan was well aware of the suspicion surrounding Kathleen's disappearance, and she knew more than anyone realized. But in December of 2000, Susan was found murdered in her own home. Her death, like Kathleen's, was initially mysterious. Shot in the back of the head, execution style. At first, the police were baffled, unable to find a connection between Susan's murder and Robert. But what they didn't know was that Robert was connected to more than just Kathleen's disappearance. But this story wouldn't stay hidden for long. As investigators dug deeper into Susan's life, they discovered something chilling. Susan had been preparing to testify in front of a grand jury, revealing everything she knew about Robert Durst's role in Kathleen's disappearance. Was her murder connected to this revelation? Robert denied involvement, but rumors began to swirl. He had reportedly fled the scene after Susan's death and was living under an alias in a remote area of Texas. But the more authorities searched, the more things didn't add up. Robert had gone silent, and his strange behavior made it seem like he had something to hide. Then, in 2001, Robert's life took yet another twisted turn. He was living in a boarding house in Galveston, Texas, under the alias Doug. But in September of that year, Robert would once again become the center of a death investigation. Morris Black, an elderly neighbor, was found dismembered in the apartment Robert had been renting. The police were stunned by the gruesome discovery. When they questioned Robert, he initially claimed self-defense, saying that he had killed Morris in a confrontation that spiraled out of control. Robert was arrested, but things took an even stranger turn. In the trial that followed, Robert was acquitted of murder charges. The jury found that there was insufficient evidence to prove that Robert had murdered Morris with intent. Robert's bizarre behavior and strange testimony led to many believing he had acted in self-defense, though many still questioned his true involvement. But why was Robert living under a fake identity in Texas? Was he just hiding from the past? Or was there something more sinister going on? It seemed like Robert Durst had slipped through the cracks. But in 2015, something happened that would expose his darkest secrets for the world to see. HBO released a documentary called The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst. The documentary filmmaker, Andrew Jarecki, had spent years investigating Robert's life. And during the filming of the final episode, something extraordinary occurred. As Robert sat down for an interview, he muttered the words that would haunt him forever. "What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course."
What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course.
It was an accidental confession, one that sent shockwaves through the criminal justice system. Robert had been caught on tape, speaking in a moment of unconscious truth. This was it, the smoking gun. But would it be enough to bring him to justice? In March of 2015, Robert Durst was arrested for the murder of Susan Berman, a crime he had evaded for so long. A jury would ultimately find him guilty of her murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But what about Kathleen McCormack's disappearance? Robert was also charged with her murder, but the case remained unresolved as Robert Durst passed away in January 2022 before a trial could take place. Robert Durst's story is one of tragedy, mystery, and madness. A man who was born into wealth, but whose life was marked by suspicion, murder, and a legacy of crime. His chilling confessions, his bizarre behavior, and the many lives he destroyed will forever haunt the public's imagination. But the question remains, was Robert Durst a cold-blooded killer, or a man cursed by his own demons?